Yes, sir.
Right. We'll start now. So, good morning to you, all of you. I hope last few classes have been interesting, entertaining, and you learned something new from there. In yesterday's class, we discussed about a very important, interesting disease called anthrax. Today, we'll try to recapitulate what we learned yesterday and we'll go further. First and foremost thing about anthrax was where did the name come from? And the name came from Greek word anthracotes, that means coal or black. And that name is stuck because the disease is associated with a lesion which is dark black in center. The disease usually spreads from animals, preferably and most commonly through the sheep by handling of the wool, therefore also called as wool sorter's disease, but can spread from handling other animals as well. This has been an ancient disease, recorded a lot. Robert Koch actually did huge amount of work on it and made his Koch's postulate based on his study of anthrax. And Louis Pasteur also contributed by devising vaccine for animals. And he also showed how the raw animal waste should be sterilized to make it free from the spores of Bacillus anthracis and to make them safe for us. Usually a disease of herbivores, and in modern times, though we have controlled it to some extent, but there is a possibility, but someone may use it as a weapon of bioterrorism or a biowarfare. In fact, many countries have already tried it out, and therefore we should be aware about this particular organism and this particular disease. It's a common organism in the environment present as a spore which can survive for very long duration, and since it is a commensal organism, it doesn't have much of a nutritional requirement. It can grow on any ordinary medium like nutrient agar, does not require anything special. There are numerous strains which have been isolated. As you are seeing these days, strains or isolates of COVID, SARS-CoV-2 virus, different having different properties. Similarly, different strains of anthrax bacillus have different properties. Some of them are naturally disease causing, some of them have been used as bioweapons, some of them have been used for preparation of vaccines also. We can see three clinical forms: cutaneous, which we saw yesterday, and inhalation and gastrointestinal anthrax, which we'll see today. Out of them, interesting to note that the commonest is cutaneous, but it has got a very low mortality. The most uncommon is gastrointestinal, but has got a very high mortality. Also, mortality from inhalation anthrax also is very high. Therefore, we need to be careful in dealing with these conditions. Who are at risk? The people who deal with animals or animal products, primarily the skin, horns, nails, hooves, etc. And the bacteria is non-motile, it remains locally but produces huge amount of toxins which are in the pre-active form as edema factor and lethal factor, which when combined with the protective antigen gain entry into the cell and then cause the damage to the metabolism of the cell, leading to death of the cell. And when large number of cells die, they lead to failure of the organism. These toxins also prevent phagocytosis and they also cause vascular leakage because of endothelial damage, and that can lead to hypovolemic shock, that can lead to multiple organ failures and can lead to death. In cutaneous, it is primarily exposure of the skin to the spores of the animals, spores of the bacteria from the animal products, mostly from the skin or the wool, and it had got very short incubation period of 2 to 5 days, forms a local lesion where the bacteria multiply and produce toxins, and If treated adequately, it doesn't have much fatality. Even without treatment, about 80% of the people will recover. The organism do not spread from person to person, but organism can be there in the contaminated cloths, and therefore handling of the dead body is done with great care. Burying is no use because the spores can remain alive for more than 70 years. What actually happens over here is when a person dies because of anthrax, the other organisms in the body, the E. coli, the Klebsiella, and everything else present in this on the skin and in the gastrointestinal tract, they start multiplying. There are a large number of anaerobic bacteria also present in our intestine. They start multiplying. Their job is putrefaction, destruction of our body, and recycling all the chemicals which are present in our body. Proteins, carbohydrates, metabolites, everything is recycled in the soil by these bacteria. Now, when these commensal bacteria start multiplying, they put anthrax bacillus at disadvantage, and they may overgrow and they may destroy everything else. So that is the time when anthrax feels scared, anthrax feels threatened, and from the vegetative form, the bacteria gets converted into spore form. And therefore, when the body is buried, the bacteria got converted into spores and the spores can survive. But if the body is cremated, burnt, then the spores also get destroyed. The basic pathology, whether the organism enters through cutaneous route or through oral cavity as intestinal or through respiratory route, pulmonary route, is same. That organism goes into the macrophages. The spore is taken by the macrophage where it germinates into a bacillus. The bacillus produces various toxins, and those toxins go and affect various parts of the body. Depending on the amount of toxin produced, the severity of the disease will vary. This is how the organisms look in the pus, which is taken from the skin. And if it is from the lymph node, it shows massive destruction in the lymph node. On the skin, it produces ulcers like this. The ulcers are characteristic by having huge edema around it because of the edema factor, and lots of swelling, lots of redness because of vascular permeability, but it is painless ulcer in most of the cases. That is what needs to be understood. It was usually on the exposed portion, and there usually are mild constitutional symptoms because the amount of toxin produced is less, because the number of organisms also is less. But sometimes they may get into the bloodstream, may go to the system, may go to the lymph nodes, and can lead to sepsis or can lead to multi-organ failure. And about 20% of the people which are untreated may die. So most important thing is development of a painless ulcer and development at the end stage as a blackish Ishar. Now, if you wait up to Ishar of development, then diagnosis is very easy. But ideal should be you should be able to diagnose in the early stages, and that can happen if you take proper history of the patient and see that the signs symptoms are mostly local. There is no systemic manifestation or very little systemic manifestation. So this is how the ulcer heals, does not leave a scar, so you cannot really see the people and say, okay, you had anthrax few months ago or few years ago. When it leads to lymphadenitis, it can lead to huge axillary gland swelling. So you need to suspect the patient because of history and do certain tests. The laboratory diagnosis is delayed because the culture will take time, but a quick gram stain can tell you gram positive bacilli with lots of pus cells, and that could be diagnostic. PCR is a very important test nowadays available in many laboratories. And what is more interesting these days is that you can even detect the toxin. So toxin can be detected locally if you take the local aspirate, local pus, and send it, or from the blood also, or from other body fluids also. You can detect varieties of toxins, and that will give you a specific diagnosis. Nasal swabs are not important diagnostics tool. Where recently, where are the maximum number of nasal swabs been collected for? For which disease?
COVID, sir.
COVID-19.
Yeah. Billions and billions of nasal swabs are collected every day around the globe to diagnose one viral disease, but not useful in anthrax. How do you treat? The bacteria is not resistant to antibiotics, even to penicillin. So you can start with any antibiotic treatment till your culture report tells you the sensitivity, which in all probabilities will be showing sensitive to penicillin, erythromycin, ciprofloxacin, norfloxacin, and any group of antibiotic, including tetracycline. But patient may need supportive treatment. Steroids are not very useful, but can be given in severe cases as last resort. The important thing is the antibiotic treatment has to continue for very, very long period. How long? As long as 60 days, sometimes even up to 100 days. Initially, the antibiotics can be given by injection to kill large number of bacteria, and later on, when the patient condition stabilizes, he can be kept on the oral antibiotics, and even after discharge, the patient must be asked to continue antibiotics for very long period, and patient must be followed later on for any adverse effect also. And irrespective whether it is a child or whether it is an adult, the antibiotics need to be given for long time. Okay, so that's very important. This is one important clinical condition where long antibiotic treatment is required. So one question for you all. List the diseases where prolonged antibiotic treatment is required. Okay, so list out the disease, list, make in a tabulated form, name of the disease, name of the organism causing disease, and the antibiotics which are used and the duration for which they are used. So 4 columns in a table. That is your homework, and you can upload it on assignment, or you can upload it otherwise, or you can keep it in your notebook. It's an important question. Which diseases require prolonged antibiotic treatment? Usually we give antibiotics for 5 to 7 days, not more than 10 days in most of the cases. But over here, we need to give it for much longer period. Antibiotics to be given to all. Vaccines are not much useful in anthrax for number of reasons. We'll see why they do not play a big role. So if the person is exposed to anthrax bacillus, maybe as a wool sorter, or maybe has a cutaneous anthrax, or someone else also is there who are along with the people who has got a cutaneous anthrax, then you can think that person also might be exposed to anthrax spores. In that case, long treatment of antibiotic is required, even up to 100 days. The contacts need to know that they could have obtained spores from the same site. That is very important. Should they be given vaccination? Well, may or may not be useful. Vaccination has got its own disadvantages. And if you need a vaccine, you got to contact this gentleman. He is not available most of the times. He's very busy in various meetings, etc. And yesterday he had to even go down into the bunker under the White House because there were lots of protesters outside White House. That was a news item. America has got a huge stockpile of vaccine against anthrax. The reason for that was they had suspected that during the operations in Afghanistan and in Iraq, there was a possibility that bioweapons could have been used over there, and to protect their population, to protect their soldiers, they had made huge stock of anthrax vaccines. They actually gave lots of vaccines to lots of people, and many people suffered from various diseases. Who those soldiers who operated in Afghanistan and Iraq suffered from many diseases during operations. The operations were called Operation Desert Storm 1 and Desert Storm 2. And it was thought that some of the side effects were because of the anthrax vaccines. Therefore, anthrax vaccine is not available for routine vaccination. It can be given only to those people who are at a very high risk of anthrax, such as soldiers going in an area where biological warfare is expected, or for the veterinarians, or for the people working in the uh, industry where chance of exposure to anthrax bacillus is very high. There are no reported deaths, but we really do not know because there is no controlled study done that does vaccine kill anyone or not. Hopefully it does not, but there are adverse effects which have not yet been very well reported. The bacteria does not spread from a person who is infected to another healthy person directly, even from skin to skin, unless there is an abrasion and the bacteria gets inoculated into the skin. Even inhalation of anthrax does not lead to spread of the bacteria by exposure to the respiratory secretions or exposure to the cough or breathing of the concerned person. So one need not be worried while looking after a patient of anthrax. If you can take standard precautions, and particularly if you wear gloves while you are draining the lesions or dressing the ulcers, there is no chance that you will get it. But if you have sent a specimen from there and the bacteria are grown in the culture media, you need to grow them in BSL-2 or BSL-3 level laboratories. For the reason is that when the bacteria are grown, many of those bacteria spontaneously get converted into spores, and the spores can disseminate with the aerosol locally in the lab as well as outside. Therefore, the BSL-2 level laboratory is very important for such prevention. Would you like to listen little bit about the respiratory and the gastrointestinal presentations of anthrax? This is not part of your curriculum in the first semester, but we will not be covering these diseases in the second and the third semester, where you will be talking about respiratory or gastrointestinal disease. So we'll just take a small look over here. What happens is when the person is sorting out wool or is handling the skin, lots of spores are produced in the air, and people who are not wearing protective clothing may inhale lots of these spores. The spores will get into the alveoli. These are smaller than 5 micron in size, so they can cross the trachea, cross the bronchus, and go into the alveoli. And in the alveoli, the lining macrophages will pick up those spores. The spore will get inside the macrophage, and the macrophage will try to kill the spore, but it is not able to kill the spore. So the spore will germinate over there, creating a vegetative form of the bacteria. This vegetative bacteria now will start utilizing all the nutrients in the macrophage, and this bacteria will multiply from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, exponential growth of the bacteria, and this exponential growth will lead to lots of metabolic activity with lots of toxin production. This toxin will get released from the macrophage. Also, over a period of time, the macrophage may die and it will burst, and lots of bacteria will be released. These bacteria will be picked up by other cells, and the cycle will continue in the same fashion. Some of the macrophages from the alveoli will get into the lymphatic. Through the lymphatics, go into the hilar lymph nodes, the lymph nodes along the lungs, and develop over there. Now the bacteria are in the macrophage. Macrophage is in the lymph node is in the mediastinum. The bacteria will multiply, will kill the macrophage will burst open, more bacteria will be liberated, they will infect other cells, and the toxins will cause local damage, and that way a kind of an abscess will be formed or a necrotic tissue will be formed inside the lymph node. So there will be lymph node enlargement and there will be necrosis of the lymph node. More bacteria will multiply, more toxins will be produced. The toxins may get into the bloodstream and can spread everywhere. While the local invasion by the bacteria in the alveoli and in the vessels over there will lead to pulmonary edema, will lead to pneumonia-like symptoms, and patient may die because of respiratory failure. That's how inhalation anthrax can kill the person. On the other hand, if the spores are ingested with uncooked meat or maybe with contaminated food, majority of the spores will get killed by the acid in the stomach. So nothing much will happen. But if there is injury to the gastrointestinal tract, the spores, instead of getting digested by the digestive juices, may penetrate into the mucosa. And over there, again, they will start playing in the same fashion as it happens in pulmonary or inhalation anthrax, that the spores will germinate, produce the bacteria, which multiply, which will produce the toxins, and the toxins will get absorbed, will have a systemic effect, as well as some of the toxins and some of the bacteria will start showing local effect. The local effect, again, basic pathology remains same. Edema of the tissue, increased vascular permeability, more blood and more edema fluid accumulating locally, local death of the cells, local necrosis, local loss of function. So the patient may develop diarrhea, patient may develop blood stained diarrhea. That is very important. Something like dysentery. Patient may have abdominal cramps, patient may have other symptoms depending on the absorption of the toxin and circulation of the toxin, may lead to kidney failure, may lead to hypovolemia, may lead to toxic shock syndrome, may lead to hypovolemic septic shock, and the person may ultimately die if untreated or even when treated, because the diagnosis in gastrointestinal tract anthrax is very, very late. People will start thinking he might be having Shigella dysentery, he might be having typhoid, or he might be having something else, maybe amoebiasis, maybe any parasitic infection, but not suspect anthrax, and person may die because of toxemia. So these are the two other types of anthraxes. Can we get anthrax by eating meat? Yes. If we eat meat of a dead animal which has died because of anthrax and the meat is not cooked, it may have spores, it may also have toxins in it, and those may get absorbed and can cause disease to us. So, one precaution one needs to take is that any animal who has died under suspicious circumstances, which can be called as a natural death or death due to aging or due to sickness, meat of that animal should never be eaten. So what do we eat when we eat animals? We actually kill a healthy animal and then eat the meat, whether it is pork, whether it is beef, whether it is venison, whether it is chicken, whether it is fish. We never eat sick and dead animal. We always kill the animal and then eat the meat. So always eat meat of a healthy animal. Never eat meat from an animal which has died. In nature, what happens? An animal gets anthrax, maybe gastrointestinal anthrax or maybe inhalation anthrax, maybe a reindeer, maybe a cow, maybe a buffalo, maybe a deer, maybe a giraffe, and that animal dies. Now that animal keeps lying on the surface, and the carnivorous animals, particularly hyenas, jackals, wild dogs, maybe wild cats, maybe rats, may nibble onto that particular animal's meat and may get infected. So carnivores usually get infected by eating the carcass of an animal which has died because of anthrax. The herbivorous animal gets infected because of eating herbivores, because of eating vegetations which may have spikes or thorns or some sharp objects in it which can cause injury, and the spores may enter through that and can cause gastrointestinal anthrax. Louis Pasteur, who was he? Was he a doctor? Any guess? Was he a doctor? Was he a medical person? Any guess? Does anyone know about Louis Pasteur? What was his occupation? Anyone? I am waiting for your replies.
It's a chemist.
Yes, Louis Pasteur was a chemist. He was not a medically trained doctor. And his contribution to medical science is enormous, particularly microbiology. What actually happened was Louis Pasteur was chemist and he had an average life. He was a good chemist, and during those days, the largest industry in Europe, particularly in France, was sheep and wines. And wines used to go bad many times, and people did not know why the wines were going bad. They thought some chemical process is there which is causing the wines to get bad. So, whom should they consult? The most eminent chemist. So, they called in Louis Pasteur and told him some of our wines taste good, some of our wines don't taste good, they get spoiled very fast. We don't know whether there is a problem with the water, whether there is a problem with the metal casks in which we are fermenting the wines, or something or something. So can you help us? Because wine industry was very important for the economy of France. Even today it is. So he started working on it and he realized that same method of production of wine in different containers, sometimes wine would get bad, and in another container it would remain okay. And that's where he studied wines and he found out the contaminating bacteria and the yeasts. That was his entry into microbiology, even then not into medical science. So he became a microbiologist because he started showing them sterilization of equipment before making wines. And then gradually he earned lots of fame, and then came in that the sheep were dying, and he was called to investigate why the sheep are dying. Again, not a doctor, not a veterinarian, just a chemist. He went, he observed, he studied, and he found out that sheep were dying because of anthrax. Robert Koch had already worked on that. So what he did was he tried to work as to how can we prevent anthrax in the sheep and save the sheep industry. Thousands and thousands of sheep used to die within weeks over there. And then the sheep were no good either as meat, nor their skin, nor their wool. So farmers were getting distressed. Then he started working on the organism which Robert Koch had isolated and tried to decrease the virulence factor of those organisms by repeated subculture, and he created a vaccine. He started giving that vaccine to the sheep, thousands and thousands of sheep. And what he did was he actually did a very good controlled experiment. He picked up about 35 sheep, some cows, some other cattle, some other herbivorous animals, divided them into two groups. In one group, he gave the vaccine. In the other group, he did not give vaccine. And then he sent all those animals into a common field which was known to be contaminated with the Bacillus anthracis spores. All the animals grazed over there. None of the animal which she had vaccinated died because of anthrax, while more than 80% of the animals who grazed over there, which were not vaccinated, died because of anthrax. So here he proved the effectiveness of his vaccine. And then he was in great demand. His vaccine was in great demand. He became a very popular person and he propagated that vaccine. He had some chelas, some followers, and he sent those followers all over the world to propagate use of this vaccine. Most of the Europe and UK started using this vaccine. Someone went as far as Australia. It used to take 6 months to travel to Australia by ship in those days, but someone went with his vaccine to Australia and tried vaccination over there also. But over there, another scientist also was working on vaccine, and he found his vaccine to be better than Louis Pasteur's vaccine. So Australia did not use Louis Pasteur's vaccine. The rest of Europe and England used Louis Pasteur's vaccine. He became very famous, and that's how the vaccination of animals with anthrax vaccine started. But this vaccine was not safe and is even today not safe for human beings. Therefore, the sheep was vaccinated and the sheep did not suffer from anthrax, but many times the people who handled the sheep still died of anthrax. So we had a vaccine for animals, but we did not have any vaccine for human beings. Till the American government and the British government and the Russian government and the UK and the Japanese government started working and they started producing various kinds of vaccines. And to get that vaccine, today you need to contact the heads of government. Only under his authorization, the vaccine can be given. Human vaccines are available as 6 doses. Some vaccines have been now boosted that 5 doses vaccines are given. But the problem is that this vaccine is not having long lasting immunity. So every year a booster dose is required. Therefore, this vaccine is not very popular, is not given to many people. But then there happened something interesting. There was a scare of anthrax spreading into US. Does anyone know when did it happen and how did it happen? Can anyone answer? What was the anthrax scare in US? When was it?
So during World War II,
Not really. Much later.
2001.
What happened in 2001? What happened in 2001? The
Spore was delivered in mail.
Yes, the biggest tragedy occurred in 2001 was Twin Tower destruction. And after that was that some people received some envelopes which contained whitish powder. It was received by one of the senators, it was received by some other people also. And when they suspected there was no letter on the thing, just a whitish powder. So they got suspicious that might be something problem. Actually, 5, 6 people died also, and about 45 or 50 people got infected. And when they tested this powder, they found it contained anthrax spores. So it was an attempt at bioterrorism to create the scare. And that scare was that these anthrax packets have come through post. So the government had to make sure that all postal services were stopped. Imagine, in America, postal services were stopped. All the post offices and all the contents in the post offices, particularly from the regions where this post had come and the regions to where these posts were delivered were required to be decontaminated. And as you have seen, the spores do not get killed very easily. You cannot just simply spray alcohol and imagine that it has been sterilized, it has been cleaned, the spores are dead. No, it does not happen. It takes lots of effort. Ultraviolet light also does not kill the spores easily. Fumigation takes a lot of time and is lots of corrosive action on the contents. So they had to take extensive steps to decontaminate lots of post offices, and it cost them billions of dollars. Can you imagine? Billions of dollars were spent only to make sure that the post offices do not contain any more spores of anthrax bacillus which had come through those envelopes, because some envelopes they thought might have had spores on the outside also, or while stamping or handling, the spores must have got leaked out of the envelope and could have caused damage. And actually, I think about 6 or 7 people died because of anthrax, and about 40 or 50 people, some those who received envelopes and some those who handled those envelopes, the postal employees, suffered from anthrax, primarily inhalation anthrax. It was big scare and huge amount of money was spent. And do you know how and why did it happen? Anyone knows about him? Okay, I'll tell you a short story about Bruce Evans, but I'll request you all to go and read about him, about his achievements and about his work. Bruce Evans was a scientist who was working in CDC Atlanta. Very renowned microbiologist working on large number of projects. He used to get billions of dollars as grant from the government to do his research projects. During his research projects, he used to have lots of PhD candidates who were paid scholarship to do research, and he had published lots of papers on various aspects of microbiology. His one area of work was vaccines, and that vaccines were vaccines against anthrax for human use. The existing vaccines, which required 5 or 6 doses, were not very well accepted. Though they were used extensively in the troops, they were not very well accepted. So the government wanted that we should prepare some good quality vaccine where maybe 1 or maximum 2 or 3 doses should be enough, and it should give long life immunity. Also, it should be readily acceptable, should not have side effects. So he was working on Bacillus anthracis strains to make vaccines, and he had got few $1 million worth of grant. His work was progressing. Now, when you get a grant to do a research, the company or the institute or the government which gives you grants ask you for a progress report. Same way as your parents ask you for your progress report when you come to medical school. What have you studied? I have spent so many lakhs rupees on you for admission, for your fee. Have you studied something or not? What are the results of your FNT? Show me your marks. Same thing is asked to every researcher when someone gives a grant. So every 6 months or so, one has to submit the report that I have done so much study. This one stage I have finished. I have to do now the second stage. The money which you had given has been used for stage 1. I need more money for stage 2. And if your report is accepted, you are issued the second installment of the research grant. You can continue with that research. In America, most of the researchers survive on research grant. They might be in Harvard, they might be in Oxford, they might be in Cambridge, they might be in Princeton. The colleges hardly pay them anything. They pay very little amount, but they are required to write research grants, generate research grants, and use that research grant for their research, as well as part of that research grant is taken as their salary also. This gentleman was used to lavish lifestyle because he used to generate lots of research grant and was doing good work. And this grant which was given to him to do work on anthrax bacillus was for about 4 or 5 years. He did do some work and he finished some of the parts, and then the grant also was over and the time also was over, but he did not have a real useful vaccine in his hand. So he wrote back to the government, said that please extend the time frame for which I need to work. I'll need another 2-3 years for working on the vaccine, and I need another so many millions of dollars to do further research on this, because I am trying to modify the anthrax bacillus genetically to make it less toxic and to make it more potent, more antigenic, and create antigens out of it, create antigens out of its toxins, and make it a viable, good, useful vaccine. But my work is not yet over. I need few more years and I need few more $1 million. His application was not accepted. He was told, thank you very much. You have worked a lot. We accept your work, but we cannot give you any further grant, because by then the danger of biological warfare and anthrax being used in biological warfare in West Asia had almost gone away. Saddam Hussein was dead. There was no more war going on in Iraq and Afghanistan. American troops were more or less comfortable. There was no threat over there. They had destroyed all the factories which were producing biological weapons or suspected to have produced biological weapons in Iraq, Libya, and everywhere. So the American government said, we don't have any threat of biological weapons right now. We don't need a vaccine now. We don't give any grant to Bruce Evans. What did he do? We do not have definite proof, but they have done the analysis of the anthrax spores and the anthrax bacilli which were isolated from the envelopes which were sent as bioterror weapons, and they found lots of similarity between that was using in his laboratory. So they put 2 plus 2 together and started thinking that who had to decide whether to give the grant or not to give the grant, because he thought it's imagined or it's propagated that he perhaps thought that by getting that envelope, some senators would get anthrax, and then once the senators or the MPs and the MLAs and the politicians get threatened, they will release all the money. They're not bothered about common man, but they are more bothered about themselves. So if they are threatened, they'll release the money, he'll get the money, and he'll be able to do further research. But unfortunately, there were some other brighter scientists who worked and who analyzed and who found that the terrorism used anthrax, and the anthrax bacilli present in Bruce Evans' laboratory were more or less similar. And so the investigation started against Bruce Evans. That did he deliberately spread this anthrax bacillus, leading to death of 6 people, and the charge would have been murder and cause problem to the population. So bioterrorism charge with charge of murder was something which he could not take. He committed suicide. We do not know really what happened. Was the strain the same? Was he the one who sent it out, or did someone else in his lab used the laboratory strain and created this? Was there some PhD student whose PhD was threatened, or his grant was threatened, or his scholarship was stopped and he wanted to continue, so he sent that envelope? What was Bruce Evans' Contribution to it, nothing is known. So there are sometimes scientists as great as Louis Pasteur, who are not doctors, who are not microbiologists, but contribute to microbiology. And then there are people who are trained but get carried away and misuse their knowledge, misuse their funds, misuse their position. It leaves us with something to think about. Would you like to be following in the footsteps of Louis Pasteur or Bruce Evans? I leave the question to you. You need to decide yourselves. So that brings us towards end of interesting anthrax, the bacteria which led to formation of Koch's postulate, which made our understanding of the disease much better, which led to the development of the vaccine, which led to the development of human vaccines, also vaccines for human beings also, which was used in warfare, which was used in industry to prevent the death of the sheep. Also, it evolved, it taught us a lot about how to sterilize various equipments, garments, things, clothes, etc. So Louis Pasteur's contribution, Robert Koch's contribution, and also contribution of many more scientists who worked in these fields have led to our present understanding of microbiology. So importance of anthrax is not only because it is caused by Bacillus anthracis, but because it has helped in understanding of microbiology, helped in understanding of pathology, helped in understanding of sterilization techniques, in culture methods, in animal experiments, in the Koch's postulate, in the vaccine development, misuse of the organism also for our own purposes by the actors on politics. So huge story about anthrax. I hope you enjoyed this story. You may or may not see a case of anthrax, but please remember and read the story of anthrax. You may come across a patient who may have suspected anthrax. In that case, use this background knowledge to suspect anthrax, to do whatever you can to prevent the death, to prevent the morbidity, and also to prevent the spread of infection. That brings us to end of anthrax. I would be very happy to answer any questions if you have about any part, whatever we have discussed or whatever we have not discussed about anthrax. So you can unmute your mics and ask me the questions. Feel free. Question could be about anything and everything. We'll discuss it. If I know the answer, I'll tell you the answer. If I don't know the answer, we'll together work and find out the answer. So ask any question. Anyone would like to ask any question, just feel free. No inhibitions.
Sir,
Yes, please.
so you posted an article in the team, sir, about
Yes.
Mark Roberts.
Yes. I posted an article about that individual. Have you read that article?
Yes, sir.
So there is a question also related to that article.
Yes, sir.
Did you find something interesting about that individual? Who is that fellow?
Sir is a 17-year-old student, school student.
Look at it. Look at it. A fellow who is working on anthrax almost the same way as Louis Pasteur, Robert Koch, and Bruce worked, isn't it? So age does not stop. And what did he do?
So he used dry heat method to kill the anthrax bacilli
Spores
by
primarily.
spores, yes, sir. By ironing the envelopes you're talking about.
Yes. So isn't it interesting? The US government spent billions of dollars in making the facility free from anthrax spores. And here this, because they had to treat each and every male envelope which had come during that time, and also the buildings and everything. So of course they were justified in doing that. But this young fellow found a very simple way. Take the envelope, run a hot iron on top of it, and the spores would die. Did he use anthrax spores to do his experiment?
No, sir.
What did he do?
So he used Bacillus subtilis,
Yes,
which are
Bacillus
much
subtilis.
resistant than the anthrax bacilli.
Yeah, they are more resistant than anthrax bacillus spores, but they are not harmful organisms. So he used
Yes.
not harmful organism as a test organism, did his studies, and published a very beautiful paper. So you don't really require very high flown laboratories like Bruce Evans required to do any research. You can do research based on your general knowledge, based on your curiosity, based on many innovative ways. So don't think research requires huge laboratories. Research basically means asking yourself a question and trying to find answer to that question.
So my question is, sir, is there can we kill the anthrax bacilli using wet heat method
Of course,
by
which
now?
wet heat method will you like to use?
I don't know, sir.
You have been taught about sterilization.
But can the bacilli be killed by that method?
That's what I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking you. Which method kills what all things in sterilization? What are the methods of sterilization with moist heat? Can you name? Now that is an application of your knowledge. What are the methods of sterilization using moist heat? So today's task for you is read about that topic of sterilization which we discussed a few months ago. We have discussed it in great detail. It's beautifully given in your books. Which are the different methods by moist heat? What are the limitations and what are the uses of each method? And then you can come back and tell us as to which method do you think will be useful to kill spores of Bacillus anthracis. Do you accept this challenge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So find out about it and write up, and we have the common platform on microbiology channel 2019. You can upload your posts over there. That place has been kept open to everybody to upload your findings, upload your posts, upload your views, and any questions or any articles or anything, something like the board which we have outside the library, vibes, where the students are encouraged to post whatever they would like to. Similarly, this board is to encourage you to post whatever you think is interesting, important, and you would like to discuss with your friends. Okay? Any other question? Any other doubt?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? No doubts? No questions? Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this session. And there are a few more topics left in dermatology, which we'll be talking about in next few classes. And by that time, I think all your syllabus for this particular semester will be over, and then we can move on to the next semester studies without taking your semester exam. Maybe we'll take your semester exam when you return over here. Thank you very much. Enjoy, have fun, stay safe, stay careful. Bye.